Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our September 8th council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Minigini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes? Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Here. Could I have a motion to excuse Dr. Hayes? He's at a conference.
I'll make a motion to excuse Dr. Hayes.
Second.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Minigini?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval of minutes of the regular meeting of August 17th. Any additions or corrections?
No wish to, I'll move to approve.
Okay. I'll support. Motion made by George, supported by myself. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Minigini?
Yes.
Approval manifest 2015-16 in the amount of $1,380,839.42. Before we start going through the individual items, I just wanted to note $697,326 of that is taxes that are paid out to other units that we collect and then pay out to the other units. George?
I see there are no numbers on the top of your sheet, so, page 2. About in the middle of the first column, right under that, $2,500 would, $499. Bus line. Replace can, bus line 125.
125 is the sidewalk machine, George. There was an electrical problem with that, and the wiring, that's the wiring harness for the sidewalk machine from Bell Equipment Company.
Okay.
Yep.
No problem. Page 4. Three down, at $1,259.30, Trish. I don't agree for paying that. Make a note of that. And page 7. The $10,000 for transfer on a golf course. What was that for, or what happened there?
That is the clubhouse, or not the clubhouse, the pro shop, or we put in X amount of dollars on an annual basis for the personnel to collect tickets, and we still have 6 months. We still go to the end of this, so we did half of that, half of the amount we normally put in.
Is this, we done this before, Ray, annually?
Yes, this is that would be a biannual amount, because we start July 1st, so we're only covering up through the end of this year.
Okay. Page 8. About maybe the quarter way down. Earn $82.50. Emergency light installed for Ryan's body. Don't we have a mechanic to this? Or we're sending the stuff out?
Yes, George, we do, and I'll have to talk to Bob about that one, what the situation was, why Brian installed a light versus our own mechanic.
Yes, and down next to the bottom, casino conference for 2 nights theme, Kuwait. Is that, this is casino, is that in the Sioux or down Powers?
That would be the Sioux.
The Sioux, okay. My mistake on that. That's all for now, Jeremy. I got some other ones we'll think over.
Chris?
No questions.
I covered a couple of them. On the first page there, Miller Canfield Paddock, the legal fees. What's that for again, rate of $2,500?
That was for the legal work for the dump truck.
Okay. And then well, I got it marked page 7, it might be 6 or 8 here. Orkin Pest Control, Spider Insect Control, is that just a double blip there because it's the same check number, 37868, or is that for 2 months? I know they pay that monthly, but they're back to back here and it's the same check number, 54913. Is that just a typo?
I'm guessing it's 2 months, but I'll double check.
Okay. One more thing here. And on all these taxes that we collected for, the school, ISD, North Alert, blah, 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 the whole works here, do we get anything out of that? Do we charge them anything for doing,
We have our administration fee that we applied because of all that.
which is
That was the 1%.
1%.
1%? Okay. Okay, and the only other thing I have here is just a little comment to let the people know where some of our money goes. We paid out $2,670 in life insurance this month, $27,530 for health insurance, and $42,800 to the Michigan Employment Retirement System. That's all I have.
Okay, the only one I had, you already asked, so with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I got one more, Jeremy. And page 9, the paving and curbing in this smart freeze grant, Ray or Joe, is that money that we're going to get back? I'm assuming that's US 8 and US 2?
That's correct. That's part of that.
Yeah, we're going to hopefully we're going to get that back.
That's correct.
Okay, with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest 2015-60 in the amount of $1,380,839.42.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes, manifest, or agenda item? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. If not, there'll be a time for comment on any subject at the end of the meeting. Okay. Beginning this evening, we have Mr. Charles Anderson here to present to us about the new fire truck that we got.
Hey guys, just wanted to get you up to speed with the fire truck. It's here now, we've had it for a week, parked out in front. There's some people throughout this process that need to be recognized, it's been quite a process, and first and foremost, I want to thank my wife, Carol. She did a heck of a job helping me out with the forms for the FEMA rules. This book right here are the forms that we had to fill out and the regulations, and we're still not done. We have a closeout audit in about 3 months that we have to get change, he was 100%.
And how much
That
were,
wouldn't work.
and how much were you right, Chuck?
Not very often, I'll tell you that. But this is what we're looking at for a couple people to go after. And there's a few more people that helped out along the way that were behind the scenes, but they were tremendous. And we have Mary, Trish, and Lisa in the office. Unbelievable help. They helped me through the bid process, the transfer of the dollars from FEMA. I called them multiple times for answers, and they were right there with me. And thank you for all your help. I formed a spec review team, a bid review team, and that was Rick, your mechanic, the fire chief Dave Ball, assistant fire chief Mark Zoller, President Aaron Richards, and our safety officer Rich Belmore. They were behind the scenes with this process the whole way, and they were doing a wonderful job. A little bit about the truck itself. I'm not going to tell you what all the little details are. There'll be a rep tomorrow night at the fire hall actually teaching us how to operate some specific pumps from Pierce. But the bottom line on the dollars for this truck, something you might be interested in, the grant was for $250,000. Okay, FEMA's responsibility was 95% or $237,500, and the city of Norway's responsibility was 5% or $12,500. And I would like to thank the council for, this is I put that in the budget for quite a few years, and it finally happened when the invoice came. The $12,500 was there, and also the bids. It was actually a little more than $12,500. The bids were $1,874 over. And that's pretty good on a $250,000 bid, just going over $1,800 roughly. So the city of Norway paid $14,374 for that truck that's sitting out there. And they also get a chassis from the old tanker, which is a 2001 chassis with 5,000 miles on it, that I believe you're going to be turning into a standard plow truck type unit. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win. And also what a lot of people don't realize is during the build, on the passenger side of the truck, we realized that we had some space available. The driver's side is the drop tank. Passenger side is just blank. And the firemen stepped up to the plate and paid $2,100 of their own money to put a set of ladders along that side. It's 3 ladders and it's a nice nest, but they use their own money, and that's how much they want to help this community out. So my hat's off to them also. A little bit about the truck, and then I'll be done here unless you have some questions. The truck is a 3,000-gallon tanker. The previous truck that we had was a 2,000-gallon tanker. 1,000 gallons makes a big difference. We could have maybe went for a 2,000-gallon tanker, but it didn't seem to make sense. We wanted to get more. We got the grant. Let's get more. We'll take the 3,000 gallons. There's features on it, the drop tank. I'd like to show everybody the truck actually at some point in time. But it's got an automatic dump valve. The driver doesn't have to get out and open up this big valve like we used to. He can actually hit a switch and dump the water out. Everything's about safety on this truck. NFPA, OSHA, it's all about safety. There's a backup camera, voice actuated. There's just a multitude of things. And all you have to do is come to the fire hall and ask one of the firemen, and we'll show you all the features of this truck. There's been some talk about possible open house yet this fall to show the public, but if that happens, great. If it doesn't, we'll do it in the spring. That's about all. I just wanted you guys to be up to date on what happened there. So, any questions about it?
Well, Chuck, I'd like to thank you, your wife, and all the people involved for the effort they put into getting us this truck.
Great. It was a lot of, not being a municipality, being on our own. And the help was here. We knew the help was here, but we tried to do it on our own. And once we got through those forms and regulations, I don't know how you do it.
think the community owes Chuck a real big hand and appreciation for all the work you did in your life. There's not too many people Chuck could go out of way and do with you, the tourist community.
But like you said at the other council meeting, it took a long time.
Government works slow.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay, we have quite a few items in our business this evening, and so we're starting with the 14th Avenue Storm Sewer Project. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We went out for bids this past week, something that we talked about again over this past year and did put it in the budget. You can see the report, but you also see the list of items that we also have on this agenda. Mainly what happened is that due to the water over the course of the summer, exceptional water at the hydro, we couldn't dewater certain specific areas that we wanted to inspect, like unit number 3, delay on unit number 2, we knew we had to deal with that, and then also putting the cofferdam in and working on the spillway. So anyway, once we got into it, like anything, you look at, you find areas that you have to address. You see those in the agenda tonight. We're recommending that you decline on the bids for 14th Avenue on the storm. Something that we can revisit again this spring and see if we can rebid it maybe next, either late spring, going into the summer for next fiscal year.
Ray, can I ask a question here?
Sure.
Any reason why all of the bids come in double with the engineering?
We did add some HMA up on top of the hill, and some pavement, because we looked at 14th Avenue and Jansen Street there, and we wanted to make sure that the water, went in the right location. Also, the bids are higher. We looked at the unit pricing, and it's higher, and it may be just that time of the year that we went out for bid.
Everybody's booked full?
I think so. I'm not going to speculate as to why, but it's not the best time to put this out. But, based on our original estimate, original budget, and also with, especially based on what we have in front of us at the hydro, I think that it's probably your best interest to decline the bids, and we'll readdress it in the spring.
Well, personally, I hate to put it off, but I don't think we have much of a choice here. So I'll make the recommendation that the bids for the 14th Avenue Storm Sewer Project be declined and that staff be directed to reevaluate both scope and budget for a FY 2016-17 project.
Second.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have Sturgeon Falls Hydro Sediment Monitoring Analysis. Joe.
Before you, you will see a quote from Whitewater Associates in Amazon, Michigan. This is a FERC-regulated activity required to fulfill our license to operate the hydro. This will be the first time that it's come up that we have to take samples of the sediment at the river bottom and have them analyzed. So there isn't many people that do that type of work that are close by to come and collect the samples. Whitewater's the closest, so I just went with those guys, got a bid for it for $880 to do that sampling.
I see what they're testing for.
Yeah.
How would our dam affect any of those things?
It won't. It won't, Jeremy. But it's one of these things where they've said, in order to get the license to operate the hydro, this is what you need to do. So we're tagged with it.
That was going to be my question, Jeremy. I mean, and what can we do about it?
Nothing. There's nothing you can do.
FERC, I love them, don't you?
Any other questions? Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that Whitewater Associates be approved to perform sediment monitoring analysis for the city's FERC operating license for a price not to exceed $880.
I'll support. Motion made by Chris, supported by myself. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes,
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Next, approval hydro and water system automation, PLC, and HMI support. Joe?
This one is a little more lengthy in discussion, just because of understanding everything that's happened. We had a company here to do our automation for the hydro, also did the automation system that is in our water plant. That man has dissolved his business and moved to Tennessee and no longer does that type of work and left us without any support for our automation system. So I was out looking for a company that is familiar with hydro, the mechanics of hydro, how they operate and function, and understand that totally, and then also be able to work on those parts of our hydro for us. We have used L&S Electric in the past. They do and specialize in hydro automation, and they work heavily into the PLC and support area. So I had them come up to check some other work for me, and while they were here, look over our system and give me a quote for being our support folks for a period of 5 years, and outlined is some of the costs associated with that. Now, to do a long-term contract with these people, what they guaranteed is that they will hold their prices for the term of 5 years. They will see no price increases for their work and labor for 5 years. So I've worked with them in the past. They're very good. They're out of Schofield, Wisconsin, and a lot of things they can do remotely, but some things they do have to come on site for. So that's what now the other thing I need to mention is that this, like many of the other ones where I tell you that it's going to be $20,000, that's what I'm going to budget for it. If I don't need them, we don't get charged that money. They only charge me for what they use. So we might only use 10,000 of it or 15,000, depending on the year and what our needs are. Very similar to what we do with Krause Power Engineering.
So is that why you're seeking 30 when their total is 31.8?
Yeah, I don't think I'll spend 31.8. Looking at what their quotes were, I would just like an approval for 30. That will get me started, and we'll revisit it. Every year I'll budget some money towards that.
Okay.
So.
Joe, I read through this, it says they're gonna send a man out in California to go to school?
Yes, they are going to be doing that. They do not have someone on staff. They use a system called Wonderware, and they don't have someone that knows inductive automation. So what they're going to do is they're going to send somebody. I'm going to pay for this guy to go and learn this. Now, this is a computer human-machine interface specialist that they're sending to learn this program. We're the only customers they have that have this program, and they're not going to use it for anything else other than support us.
What happens if he quits?
Well, they have other people too, but I guess at that point, I really can't answer that. They would have to send somebody else, apparently, I would think on their nickel, if that guy left.
That's what my concern is.
Yeah.
What guarantees do we have that?
Yeah. Well, their guarantee is they will support us with this.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if you're $18,000, it appears that for schooling, that 5 days of training. If that man quits, is there any guarantees that they're going to send somebody else? Or we have?
Well, I had that discussion, not exactly like you're asking me with them. The discussion that I had with them was more like, if we go and send this guy to school to learn this for 5 days at the induction automated office in California, And what is going to assure the city of Norway that they're not going to start using him to make more money? You know, start selling it, and they said absolutely not, that that would not happen. And he is our guy, he's assigned to the city of Norway. And if they come across with someone else that has that same automation program, that they would have another guy assigned, not our guy assigned to it. So, and they would have to teach that guy themselves.
I would feel better if you find out, what if the man quits and
Okay.
goes someplace? What guarantees do we have that, then they're gonna fulfill their promise?
Okay, I can ask that question. I
think
don't
it's
have an
a
answer
demand.
right now for you, George, because I didn't specifically
No,
ask it that
no,
way.
but I think it's a legitimate question, Joe.
No.
Is this something that has to be done right away, Joe?
I have a few issues at the hydro. I don't need to have this done tonight. It could wait till the next council meeting. That's fine. I'll just put off having them come to work on it till we get an approval on the 21st then.
Lee or the rest of the council, and if Joe can get an answer to that, I would be all for it. That's my
Okay.
only,
Yeah, it's no problem. I'll do that.
my only concern on the whole thing.
I will pose the question and see how it's answered.
Would you be willing to accept if the motion was to approve it pending that you getting that answer?
Right, if it's, the answer is available, I'll accept it
Okay,
the way it is.
all right.
Then if you could answer tomorrow, Joe, you can
I
go
might
ahead
be
and
able to.
work.
I might be able to do that tomorrow, yes.
If that's okay with you, Lee.
Yeah, fine.
You want to make that motion?
Yes.
I'll support. Motion made by George, supported by myself to
Understand my
approve,
motion?
to approve pending getting the answer on what happens if that guy leaves.
Okay. Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, next on the agenda, approval Sturgeon Falls Hydro software upgrade. Joe?
Last council meeting, I believe it was the last one, we had approved another server for the city hall, so we have a backup server. The server that is down at the hydro is going to be moved to the city hall area for security purposes and redundancy. And also then the city system can also be backed up onto that server. So there's a lot of software specifically for the hydro in that server, and because this individual left about 8 months to 13 months ago, we weren't getting our software updates as we needed them. And we're way behind on our software updates. Along with the software updates, you get assistance in support with these updates. And Chris Godstein from GoTech and myself have had several conversations. I told him I was reluctant to have him move the server at the hydro until we had these updates taken care of, so he would have support in case something went awry. And that's why I'm putting before you tonight this $10,312.12 quote to get all the updates, get all of our support up to date, so Chris continues with his job in moving the servers, and if he has a problem, then he can call on the inductive folks and get the support that he needs to do his job. Without it, we have no support, and if something goes wrong, the hydro's automation system's dead in the water.
What's the term on this total care? Is this 1 year? Is this life of the?
Right now, these are all the updates they have. They don't have any in the books to do, so it brings us up to date. You know how software is. It might be
Well, I
2
know,
years
but
from now.
I'm saying-
They had no answer
Okay,
to that.
But I'm just saying, is the duration of total care 1 year?
Oh,
or
no,
every year we're going to get
no,
$2,000?
no, no. This one cost is for the life of the system.
Okay.
Until they change something else.
That was my question.
Yes.
I think there
that's-
was a yearly support contract with them, but the reason this one was so high is because we were so far behind and hadn't
Yeah.
done
Oh,
it,
yeah.
we had to get caught back up. So I think that just the support was like $1,000 or like a.
I was gonna say $1,200, I
Yeah,
thought I read.
1,200, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
Was this budgeted?
Yes.
I'll make a recommendation then that the inductive automation software upgrade be approved for a price not to exceed $10,312.12.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Abstain.
Next on the agenda, approval, Sturgeon Falls Hydro, Unit Number 3, runner repair. Joe?
Earlier in the evening, I put some pictures in front of each one of the councilmen. This picture is of the water turbine on unit number 3. What the picture represents is the end of the turbine blades, and the damage that you are looking at is from cavitation. It's just where air bubbles are formed through the water, and the air bubbles erode the metal. This unit has been in operation without any maintenance on it because we didn't need to do any maintenance, but for 12 years on that runner. So it's been a pretty good run for this particular runner. We had the opportunity to de-water it, take a look at it a little over a week ago, and because the water finally went down. So before you is what you see there with the holes in the blades of the runner that need to be repaired. I would like to have this unit back in place for spring runoff so we can capture all of our water. It currently does function. It is out of balance and it bangs around a little bit. It wears the other components in the unit, but and it has less of an output electric-wise in the kilowatt output. So I would like to take it out. I'd like to get it fixed. So I went with Fabricating and Machining, who has extensive knowledge in repairing these type of runners. And those are the folks that repaired the runners that we currently have that broke. And it's going to be approximately from the time I get the runner out, which will be in probably 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be about 12 weeks for the repair of the runner. There are 6 blades on this runner. Every one of them is like what you're looking at. And so while Myron Construction is down there working on unit number 2, I can have them go over and work on this unit and get it out on a time and material basis, which has worked out very well for the insurance company. I estimate that the savings, talking with other folks on a bid process, we've probably saved by doing time and material type work and having it managed very closely by myself and some of my staff members, approximately $200,000 in cost savings over a flat bid. What I've found over the past is when you flat bid something, contractors like to inflate the price because of unknowns once you get into it, and then we hold their toes to the fire on, well, you said you do it for this amount, and so they add extras. And on the time and material, everybody's guaranteed that they'll get what you pay for, and they get paid for what they do. And if I manage them very closely, like I have been through this whole process with Unit 1 and 2, I believe I can do it at a $64,000. I believe I put in the estimate on the removal and installation. Yep, $64,000. And then the repair of the runner is going to come in not to exceed $120,000, but I also am going to do that on time and material, so it could come in less than that. But it will not exceed $120,000.
Total, Joe?
It's gonna, the total, if I add the time and material for the removal and installation of it, it comes to $184,000
Okay, yeah.
total.
Now,
Remove, install, and repair. But that's not etched in stone, it could be less than that.
Yeah.
That is the most it will be. So,
And they're gonna be color coding this like the last one?
yes, this will be all painted up with,
If it wears off, the next color will
Right,
start to
yes.
show, so they'll know there's wear.
I'm trying to think of the name of the product. It eludes me right now.
TRC or TCR?
No, TCR is not going to be coating it. They're going to coat it at fabricating machining shop.
It starts with a,
Yeah.
it's not a, in a metal.
It's the stuff that reduces cavitation. It's kind of like an enamel, but I just can't think of it right now, the name of it.
Horizon or something.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yes, it's going to be coated. Part of the repair that we're looking at, you can see the blade tip in your picture. We're going to be removing that blade tip. This runner is a cast steel runner, and we're going to be installing stainless steel tips on this runner. You can weld stainless with the right welding procedure, to cast steel without any problem whatsoever. So that's the process that I'm looking at for repair. And that'll reduce future cavitation because of that on this runner.
And because this is unexpected, this will be coming out of fund balance?
Yes, that is correct. This is a fund balance payment.
Well, that's why we have the fund, that's why we keep the high fund balance.
Yes, that's where it's going to come from.
It's a little more than a golf course payment. Any other questions or comments? For a motion.
It's a lot of money, but it's gotta be done. I'll make a motion that fabricating, machining, and repair be approved to perform the repairs at a price not to exceed $120,000 on a time and material basis, and Myron Construction to perform the field work at a time and material price not to exceed $64,000 for a total not to exceed time and material price of $184,000.
Second.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Minigini?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is the Sturgeon Falls Hydro Spillway Heated Bottom Seal. Joe.
I'm just looking at the paperwork here, trying to
I
get it
missed, I
straight.
skipped one, sorry.
Trying to get it straight.
Well, concrete spillway, how about we go with that one?
Yeah, okay.
We'll go with that one next?
That one works better, yeah.
Concrete spillway and void repair.
Yeah. As Ray alluded to earlier in the meeting, you tend to find things that you don't know are there when you dewater them. So we went ahead with the spillway dewatering, and we found some issues. So there is a large water leak. It comes right out of the concrete. It's about 4 feet down from the, 4 to 5 feet down from the surface. It appears like it's entering on a seam where they poured the concrete in layers many, many, many years ago, over 100 years ago. And so in order to save the integrity of the concrete, I would like to have that injected with a material that they use to stop the leaking. We've done that at several areas of the hydro already over the last 3 years that TCR has been working down there for me, and it has worked very well. And before you, you see TCR's quote for that repair at $18,850.
I see FERC has kind of told you better get it done.
Yeah, there's a few things down there that they have noticed that's going to come to light soon. This is just one of them.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that TCR approve the contract for $18,850 to repair the spillway concrete and void.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. How about we go with that heated spillway now, Joe?
That works better. Okay, the next on the list is another issue that we weren't aware of totally before it was dewatered. And this, I'm requesting to have a seal replaced similar to the side seals that we're currently doing for the 312,000 contract that TCR has with us to do that effort. We dewatered it. The concrete on the bottom of the spillway is not in the best shape as far as levelness and even. So when the gate comes down to seal it off, because of the roughness of the concrete, it is hard to get that to seal. So I talked with TCR and their subcontractor, Plutchik, out of Escanaba, who's building all the seals out of stainless for the two sides that we're doing and heating them. And they quoted a price, what you see in front of you, and says on the paper for $11,200. But then on Friday afternoon, late on the 4th of the month, they sent me a revised quote, and I did not have time to get it to Ray to get the right number for you to look over for the weekend, but I did hand it out during the meeting here to you, and it's $14,800 is what they need to replace that bottom seal that's there, get rid of the concrete, put in a stainless steel one, and then also run some heat tubes through it. So in the winter, we will be able to open and close the gate if we need to in case of an emergency to get rid of water.
What's the advantage of the heated seal over the non-heated? 'Cause it's about
The
six-
non-heated seal is just a stainless steel plate, and when the gate seal comes down and meets it, it gives it a nice smooth, everybody can understand that. The reason I would like to heat it is because we've had issues in the past with ice buildup on the bottom of the gate. If I turn the heaters on, I don't have to run them all the time, but if I turn the heaters on, it'll melt the ice off. I can't pick the gate because it weighs too much. The motor drive won't pick it up if there's ice buildup on it. So these heated seals would do away with the ice and we'd be able to open the gate.
You know why they recommended the non-heated over the heated? Because their quote has that.
Yes, yep. There's been 4 or 5 conversations with them over the last week over this. Plutchik, who has installed this stuff for We Energies and Wisconsin Public Service at several of their hydro dams, recommended we did not heat them. They were concerned about a failure in the tubing, but I talked them through that process, and we are going with a 3-zone system versus one loop taking care of everything. So it'll be a 3-zone. One side will be a zone, another side's a zone, the bottom's a zone. In their mind, they weren't going to do that at first, but after I consulted with We Energies and the new gates they put up at Way Dam, it's all zoned separately. So if you have an issue with a zone, you can just shut the valves off. Your glycol doesn't all leak out, you don't have problems. And a lot of the gates that they deal with don't have ice buildup issues like this gate does. And so once I told them that on Friday, when I talked to them late, that we have ice buildup issues, then they said, oh, okay, well, I recommend then that you heat them. So it was after the fact, I'm sorry, but everything came in late, so.
That's probably where the other 3,600 was making it zone.
Yeah,
instead of-
it's the zones that I put in.
Joe, what do you use for heating?
It's gonna be a hot, yes, it's gonna be a hot water heater, a large hot water heater, and we use the power from the dam to heat. That's a common practice. We Energies uses hot water heaters at all their facilities. And you just put glycol in them, just like an in-floor heating system in your home.
Yeah.
And you got 3 little pumps, and you got the zones. Same type setup.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's included in the cost.
Yes, that's total.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion. I'll make a motion TCR be approved to add heated side seals, new bottom rubber seal, hydro spillway for a price not to exceed $14,800. Motion made by myself, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Great.
Okay, this is the last hydro one. Sturgeon Falls Hydro, 24-foot Tanner Gate gusset support improvements. Joe?
Okay, this particular item, we're gonna have to go all the way back to 1998, 99, and 2000. When the city applied for its new license, it was identified during that period that there could be some structural support issues on the Tanner Gate from the large trunnion area to the skin of the surface of the hydro. And we never dewatered the gate in all those years, so we could work on it. We've now dewatered the gate, and this is something that FERC brought up, that now that the gate's dewatered, they'd like to see those members strengthened. So I asked Plutchik, who is on site doing work, for a quote to do that support work. And you see the Plutchik through TCR on, let me find the quote here, the right one.
$17,750.
Yeah, that isn't right. It's 14, it's lower than that. On the revised quote they gave me, I thought I had it with me tonight, I guess I don't. It's 14,000 and some change. It doesn't matter that it's not exact because Myron Construction also quoted it, and they quoted it at 7,950. So Myron is down there working on a time and material basis for me on unit number 2 and now going to be unit number 3. I think I got a really good price from them because they're there on site. They understand the project, so they said they would do it for that amount of money. So I'm looking for the approval for that while that gate is dewatered so we can satisfy the FERC requirement to strengthen those members.
Okay, any questions, comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion that Myron Construction be approved to repair the hydro Tanner Gate gusset supports for a price not to exceed $7,950.
Second.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Okay, next we have the Norway 125 Westby Centennial Committee Budget Request. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that the committee, myself, and Mr. Carlson have gone over quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. We were very careful at the last meeting because of some issues and potential issues on how we support, how the city supports the upcoming event. One of the things we did at the last meeting was received a budget of acceptable costs for the project or for the event, which came to $50,000. And one of the suggestions shortly after the meeting was that we are putting together a nonprofit. We are putting together or we have an account set aside, and that we could deposit these funds into that account to be drawn from. And I think the committee just needs some support right now as a whole to get started. you know, what our concern is that when we get down to the audit time to June and the end of the fiscal year, that we have a good accounting on what those eligible expenditures are. Now, Mr. Carlson has done some additional research. They came up with some additional ideas, but ultimately, we would like to ask council if we could put monies into an account so that we can move forward with numerous expenses for the event. There are a number of expenses that are coming. We need to secure certain long lead items for this, and we're getting short of time. So it's important to finish this up tonight, and so we can move forward. Grant, do you have, you want to add anything?
Well, as always, I guess, I've got a few thoughts, and you know, we've talked about this pretty extensively, and it's, when you start talking about the availability to give taxpayer dollars out, there's a differentiation between taxpayer dollars, revenue monies, and we're constrained by the state constitution in that, and that's where it gets a little murky, and I think, Leah, you at one point had said, well, what's a public purpose? You know, isn't providing a concert venue a public purpose, or having a band there, is that a public purpose? And you know, it's clear as mud, I guess, is the best way to put it. And you know, looking at the estimated budget and talking through this again with my partners as well, and trying to reach out to Michigan municipal attorneys throughout the state. You know, a lot of people have had some different ideas. Different people have promised some suggestions that haven't come. Nevertheless, at this point, I've sent out tonight the bylaws on the creation of the corporation for the 501c to the committee for them to review, so that is proceeding forward. As far as funding it, one of the constraints we have as a city is with taxpayer dollars, what can we spend taxpayer dollars on? And that's where much of the estimated budget was completed and proposed to the city council as well. That accumulated that $50,000 request. In my opinion, I don't think we can allot any monies for City of Norway merchandise. I don't think that's for a public purpose. I don't think that's an acceptable way to spend taxpayer dollars by statute. That's not my opinion. That's just, I think, a limitation. But I think ultimately, folks, you have a couple different options to do this if the council wishes to proceed. I do not think that, and I've shared this with some of the committee members as well, I don't think we can just hand a check over to the committee from the general fund. I don't think that's acceptable because, again, it's that differentiation with taxpayer dollars versus revenues.
Well, and just to kind of explain that, the utility funds would generate revenue dollars.
Right, and that's where the differentiation comes.
Right. For the public, I just wanted to make.
Yep, in digging through this extensively, trying to look at different options to give the city council, again, choices. One of the ways is under there's a Michigan statute that if a municipality owns or operates a public utility, it may authorize the giving of gifts or contributions from the operating revenues of the utility, the profits, if you will, in such amounts and for such purposes as are determined by the governing body of the public utility and in the best interest of the public interest. So up to you folks on if you determine that it's in the public interest to do so, to give a contribution from the revenues of the utility. In this instance, it'd be our electric fund, I believe, which is our dam. We would be able to do so, it appears, by statute. Again, if we're going to use and assist through the general fund, I think we can still use and provide support, much like we have in the past for other events, by providing electricity, by providing police coverage, by providing the property and the land to do so. And you know, that goes along with the budget requested by the committee, which includes, by statute, you're allowed to provide money for the public interest, which is paid for with public money for public health and welfare. That's a statutory, permissible expense for the public good. That would be portable toilets and sinks. Electric power, again, that's through the city. Park maintenance and security, again, for the public purpose and for the public interest. So if the council wished to proceed with, as we have with other requests for expenditures, to permit the city to spend up to an amount requested for these specific items, I think that's appropriate. But I do not think we can just hand over, again, taxpayer dollars from the general fund. If we use revenues from the public utilities, by statute, it appears as though you can do that. I would urge and advise you, frankly, that, you know, if you were to make that recommendation, that motion, that, you know, with that motion, there's also some inclusion of language that as a result of the contribution, that there be access either through our city manager or through our treasurer to have access to the books, to have it open for the public to see and to ensure that those monies are being spent appropriately. And also, I think a caveat or an attachment to that, that the monies that are donated, that after net expenses or after expenses are paid from this committee or this 501c3, that there is an agreement to donate money back in the same amount from revenues back to the city, as indicated in our packet, for the placement of utility fund as well, or if it's the general fund, back into for the Parks and Recreation. Again, it's what is clear as mud to some extent, but once you pull back a few of the layers.
Grant, have you spoken with Scott Kenny, that does the accounting for the city?
We have.
What his look on this? And he watches over with a fine tooth comb.
Yes, sir.
What's his recommendations?
Well, in Georgia, and that's what, you know, Ray and I, when we dove into this, it was, you know, you knew you were going to be peeling back layers and looking to see what you can and can't do. And his first recommendation was that, you know, a 501c3 separate entity was set up. That separate entity has been up and running as a committee for some time now, and the paperwork is now up and running. The IRS application has to be made for the 501c3 status. But his recommendation was to, you know, that the city not involve itself in alcohol sales, liquor licenses, et cetera.
That's understandable.
But that we could provide the support, if you will, providing electricity, providing the land to have the event on it, providing advertisement. That's again another statutory allowance for expenditures if it comes from the general fund. As far as the discussion regarding the revenues from the utility, that was just brought to my attention just a couple days ago, and I chatted with Ray, because again, trying to find as many options for this thing as possible to avoid some of the issues with using, again, taxpayer dollars.
So it would be legal if we wrote them a check to be paid back for $50,000 from the electric department,
It appears the statute indicates you
to
can
the
do that.
statute.
Yes.
So that's the route we should go then.
If you're going to write a check for $50,000 to the, it's going to be called the Friends of Norway.
Friends of Norway, okay.
501c3. Then I would recommend it goes through the utility, and that with that caveat as well, that, you know, for any net or any net revenues that come back after the celebration is complete, that be donated back.
And that money should be paid back with any profit first, and we might have that money back in 6 months.
You very well could. And I know that the efforts of these folks that have been meeting, I think every Friday for the last couple of months now, they have packets that are looking to go out immediately, if not already. I think
Right.
they've already begun looking at donations and talking to a number of the local businesses. When I say local, I mean throughout the mid and central UP. My understanding is the city of Niagara did something similar, and you know, history isn't always an accurate predictor, but their proceeds or their donation was paid back in a relatively quick time. I think about the 6-month time period. There's no guarantee that will happen
No,
here,
right.
but our area has always been known as a generous community, and the businesses always do try to give back. So I think I share the optimism with you as well.
How long do you think it'll technically take for this 501(c)(3), whatever it is, to be finalized? You said it's all in the works.
Well, the nuts and bolts are done. You know, we did something similar up the road and came up with a 501c3 for some park projects in Iron Mountain. So that the nuts and bolts are done, it's just now the application to the IRS has to go out the door. And with some help from the committee, I'm sure we'd be able to do that relatively quickly. Again, varying timeframes I've received as far as how long it takes for the IRS to approve the nonprofit status, but because it's for this particular purpose and the, hopefully it'll move a little quicker than some of the horror stories I've heard.
I think, Lee, is the committee looking for, say, consensus from the council, if they're in favor of or not, so they can go out and line their ducks up and...
I think they're looking for,
They're looking for a check.
They're looking for a check.
Yeah, but,
Well,
I mean, okay. Can we give them a check before the other paperwork is done?
Can we give them the money before the 501c3 is done?
There will be an account set up by the end of the week. You need an EIN number, so that's the only thing that's lacking at this point.
Okay.
Assuming that we're meeting on, like we regularly are, to approve the bylaws and all of the other information. Again, I just sent that out this evening to the committee, and some of them may not have received it yet.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we need a motion.
Should the motion be made stating that the money comes from the electric department? Or is it just the way it is here, okay?
Out of the
First of
department.
all,
And Grant also recommended to include that the books be open and that
first of
agreement
all,
be back.
Joe, do you have,
Add that all into the motion.
It's fine. It's not a problem.
Well, how's the water fund sitting?
Water's wonderful. Well,
Your water's
yeah,
wonderful, the water fund is.
yeah, the water fund isn't, no. I mean, cable fund has a little bit, we could tap into that. Electric, it's not gonna kill the electric department to cut a check for that amount. It's not, so.
I think the motion has to include language that the fine folks of the city council determine it's in the best interest of the public, it's a public purpose, the public interest, if you will, and that, as you indicated, Lee, that the agreement is it's given upon the completion of the setup of and finalization of that 501c3 with the account set up, but also that it be returned upon the net revenues being provided.
And that the books be open.
And that the books be open, yes.
Okay. You got all that?
Somebody want to make that
Yep,
Okay, I'll make that motion then.
okay.
second.
motion made by Lee, supported by Chris? Roll call.
Mr. Ball?
yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, approval, city-owned property purchase request, Jared Gendron. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're following the new policy the council put in place earlier this year. Coming to council, I did get a request from Mr. Genren. I know we looked at something earlier in the year. He's interested in purchasing property on the other side of Roshan Lane from his current shop. He was looking at the property north of Strawberry Lake Road, but I've had a number of conversations with him, went over, we walked the properties, and now he's interested more in the property south of Strawberry Lake Road. What we also did was we did receive an appraisal on the properties, on both, and I gave him those numbers. The property south of Strawberry Lake Road was appraised at $10,000. Mr. Genren, and he knows about our new policy, which is requires him to pay closing costs, survey costs, and the like. So he decided to put in a new offer for that property for $6,500. Now his offer is based also on the fact that he knows that surveying of that piece, there is no surveying on that piece south of the Strawberry Lake Road, so, and looking at the surveys that we've just recently completed on meets and bounds properties, probably looking at $1,000 to get that done. We're looking at, and we need to have that done in order to get the proper legal description on it. He also knows he has the other closing costs. So, that's where he came up with the $6,500. I know that his project, he has an approved project through the Planning Commission to expand on his site, includes buildings, better operation, to help his operation, and in order to do that, he needs to move some of his inventory and some of his product over onto another piece of property, free up space. So his plan is to put up a fence and use the area as laid-out storage. One of the concerns that we had early on was that he would not be actually building a building on the property, but under the zoning code, it does stipulate that if a property is attached but across right away, that you can include it as an attached to your property, which we've had that in residential cases this year on the opposite side of alleys where people have purchased property. And so that would actually meet that part of the code. So his actual interest is to expand, but it's going to be on the property, on the main property, and then he would utilize this as his business.
Did we have this publicly listed for sale, or is this just?
No, this is one of the same, where we don't have it publicly listed yet. We started to look at some of these properties this year to get proper survey and get appraisals, you know, like that. Mr. Gendron has been talking to us for a couple of years on these properties.
Yeah, I know he's been talking to us about it. I wasn't sure if we actually had it listed out there for the public.
Just looking at it for the, if it's approved, then it goes to the Planning Commission. Try to make sure the entrance is on Strawberry Lake Road, not to Roshan Lane, because you're gonna have access management issues.
Yeah, he doesn't have any interest whatsoever to put it on Roshan Lane.
Ray, I talked to Jarrett, I went up from Parks, not particular, to talk to him about this. He might be interested, and I would like it be noted, when you go through all the paperwork, to move this road close to the railroad tracks and come up. And would that be feasible?
Well, the problem we have with moving the road along the railroad tracks is that you would bring it up to the intersection, and we would have a potential stacking area in the future.
No, come up to where the existing road is now, join it here. Come down here and then.
Is he talking then about joining the property with the north?
Then this all property be joined.
Well, it's a
I mean,
completely
this would
different.
be his expense, but, I think before you sell them the two pieces and then go all through the,
Well, he's only asking for the one right now.
oh,
He's only asking for the one on the south right now.
Does the Planning Commission have any plans for that?
This just came through, so
Just came.
it hasn't gone to Planning Commission. We talked a little bit about the properties, but nothing concrete. It's its own commercial.
I don't necessarily have an issue with there not being a building on it, because like you said, it's part of the business. What I have an issue with is we just got it approved. This is a new appraisal. And they said the appraisal says it's 10,000.
Yep.
So that's where my issue is. That's what the appraiser said.
Well, personally, I wouldn't give you $1,000 for it, but to help out a business, I'm willing to let it go at that.
I'm gonna stay consistent on what I've done in the past, and I think that we should be publicly listed before we, especially something like this where it has been listed before to the public. people the opportunity to put an offer on it.
Chris, I understand what your position is. I do know that a majority of communities that I talk to, that when we talk about their public properties, that they hold back, especially for commercial, that they hold back because of specific, you know, they don't just publicly list them because they want to have, whether it's a specific reason or a need or, you know, opportunities that fit their overall plan. You know, he's right next door. I think that from an expansion of his business.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, I mean, because he's been looking at this for a couple of years, I think, and I know he's come across for a while, so I mean, he's been patient, he's gone through the process and done everything the right way, so I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that, sometimes it feels like we're sliding things through. I just like to see it open to the public.
How much would that take to just list it out there, put it out there and say, hey, this is for sale?
Well, we have an agent that has a listing for us. I don't think it costs anything, just put it out there. But then you'd have the sale go through the agent. If you list it, just throw it on their webpage, then the agent doesn't have to be involved.
Oh, yeah, no reason to go through an agent.
Well, I mean, you have to define listing, you know, where are we gonna list it? I mean, we have a couple of properties that we have opted to have listed through the agent, so we could get the MLS. But, I think in this case, this is kind of a local.
I don't think he
Somebody's
needs to go
interested
through, I don't
in
think he needs to go on MLS or anything, I don't think he needs to go through an agent, but just to have it on, or even having it on the list, I mean, I know it's kind of late right now at this point, because I know he probably wants to get moving on something this fall, but, you know.
It's council choice.
Is there a motion?
I'm neutral.
You move to approve or to sell it?
I will go either way.
Well, I didn't hear what you said.
No, I'll go either way. If you want to sell it to him, Jenner, no, go along with that. If you want to list it, I'll go along with that too. I don't care.
I guess I would guess my motion would be to list it on our first for sale properties, a city-owned property, till the next meeting, and then approve it at the next meeting if no other offers come in. It gets it out there for a little bit. I know it's not a lot of time, but it's.
I'll agree with that.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes,
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Approval, change order number 1, US 2, US 8, highway repair, Midwest asphalt. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a couple extra items come up on the US 2, US 8, mostly on US 8, where we had some additional repair work. And so we moved forward with a change. I need to have a change order number 3 for the project. Total of the change order is $3,276.54. Brings the total for Midwest up to $47,756.54. This still is within the amount that we have in the grant or reimbursement.
is this gonna be the final?
That's
Final
final,
change
yeah,
order.
that's final.
I'll make a motion that change order number 3 be approved for Midwest gravel, asphalt and gravel for price not to exceed $3,276.54 with a total not to exceed project amount of $47,756.54.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes,
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. The final business this evening. Approval, engineering amendment, US 2, US 8, highway repair, change order number 1, Coleman Engineering. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, goes along with the previous item. when we have additional work, there's additional testing, additional oversight, and so Coleman is requesting a change order for their contract for $3,141, and finals not to exceed $11,341.
Their engineering increase was almost as much as the construction increase.
Yeah, they were there right with them, and they had to do the testing. There was some additional testing on concrete that was done during the course. It wasn't just the additional change that we had. I'd have to go back to Midwest and discuss with them about final payment and how we're going to pay that out. There is a concrete removal that was done on the project. And so without the, I want to move forward with the change order on the engineering, get that taken care of, but I want to go back to Midwest before we make any more payouts to them and talk to them about who should be covering the extra cost. So I think Coleman did what they were supposed to do. It's now a matter of who's paying for it, and we hold the money with Midwest, and it's going to be a conversation to have with them.
Was that a MDOT requirement to do the extra testing?
Yes, the testing is all per the MDOT specs.
But the additional testing was
Yeah.
through MDOT?
Well, the additional testing was because the concrete failed the first time.
Oh, okay.
And so it had to be redone, and there was the extra time and testing.
Oh.
And that's why it's, the contractor should be picking it up.
Yes.
But I don't believe that the engineer ought to be held out there waiting for the contractor. I think we have the money, we have the final payment, and they have performance, and, you know, we could get this taken care of, and then go back to Midwest and say, here's what the final payment's gonna be.
Why don't we let Coleman and, fight it out?
Because Coleman Engineering works for the city, not for Midwest. And the performance on this was Midwest, and so the city has an issue with Midwest. Coleman should be paid, and then the city will deal with Midwest and take the appropriate action.
But, Ray, how many cases have we won?
George, the engineer works for the city, not for
I know,
not for Midwest.
I'm not saying that.
Right,
Even going back to
but this isn't an engineering issue, this is an issue with the contractor. So
Midwest.
Midwest, yes, we're gonna go back to Midwest. We have final
That's
payments
my
that we're
question.
gonna make.
How many cases have we ever won?
Yeah, you know, it's projects, I mean,
I'll make a motion that Coleman Engineering be approved for engineering addendum to the engineering inspection of the US 2 USA road repair work for price not to exceed $3,141. Final project engineering cost not to exceed $11,341.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yeah.
Mr. Oja?
No.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
And that's our business this evening. Does anyone wish to address the council on any subject? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Bill O'Brien. I live at West 5716 Warren Lane, in town here. I would encourage you all to come up and take a visit, just make sure you don't have an open beverage. Might not stay in there. First, I'd like to thank you for your time and commitment on the council. I was a city council member out in Oregon when I lived out there, and I understand the time commitment and energy it takes to do this volunteer work. I wanted to just bring to attention, you may have read in the newspaper that the middle school is doing a playground improvement project, and my employer, Plum Creek, did a foundation grant for that project, and they've done multiple donations to the city here as well for the urban forestry program. Through that process, supported by the school board and the middle school PTA, or PTO, which my wife is a member of, they secured that grant for the project, and through gracious volunteer efforts of local businesses, particularly they found Talbot Logging, Gendron Construction, and Baca Construction. We were able to get almost all that work that's been completed so far done for free. Part of that process was removal of trees and stumps and some branches, which Gendron's hauled, I think, thanks to Chris Weber Construction and use of his private pit, we were able to make that stuff go away and finish the project and keep it on task. But I just wanted to mention that I was a little disappointed in the city for the lack of support for that project.
Legally, we can't allow rotting material or material that can rot into the pit by
Does the city put
DEQ.
anything in it?
Not that kind of stuff. It's only concrete, stone, stuff that doesn't rot, because otherwise it can seep back into the groundwater.
Are you talking
This
about
was
the pit up on top of the hill?
DNR or DEQ?
Yeah, we got shut down by the DEQ because it
DEQ
creates
and-
gas. I think, well, you can put in concrete, sand, inert material. So if anybody's dumping something other than inert material, it's illegal.
Okay. Anyway, maybe that could have been communicated a little bit more clearly than, no,
I was not able to wear it.
I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't part of the conversation.
Right. I was aware of it.
A little disappointed. Anyway, so please continue to watch that project, and if there's opportunities for the city to support that as well, please consider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to address the council? Okay, Lee.
Oh, I just have one little comment, not that I read the old people's paper all the time, but Mrs. McGregor, 50 plus, had a little article in there about the seniors in Norway have a jewel on Main Street. The senior center is a vibrant, well-run, fun gathering place. Susie is one of a kind and an excellent leader. Her leadership and caring for all is very visible. Her staff is first rate and the food is wonderful. Stop in and enjoy. Visitors are welcome. I thought it was kind of nice to read that in the paper. That's all I have.
Chris.
Was at the fair this weekend and saw the booth that the city put together. I think it did a really nice job. I think it's a nice thing for us to keep doing, where we can get some information out to the people on projects we're doing and different services that we offer. So I want to thank the staff for putting that together.
George.
I got a couple of items on your miscellaneous topics for Ray. I just asked Grant, Ray, what's the possibility in, instead of going 2 miles around the city to get their disposal, of seeing if we could ride alongside the highway from Danielson's and cross the highway and get over the disposal instead. Anybody check, snowmobiles are allowed to do it in the wintertime. Why shouldn't side by side allowed to do it now?
Well, that would be an MDOT and county, determination. I'd have to go back and ask them, but there's 55 miles an hour there. I imagine they would be somewhat nervous about it, but
Well, I
I'll
mean,
ask them. I'll ask the question.
look at how much right of way you got on both sides there. I mean, your walking path is alongside. You could follow that walking path.
Maybe we could get them to lower the speeds then.
Yeah, maybe. I'll check into it, George.
And one of your statements here, Ray, about that California contractor, hopefully the order the vendor will cease. I mean, can't we get orders around that said no more of this?
That
And
was done,
employees
George.
listen?
That was taken care of, George.
Yeah, but when you put hopefully in a letter, that to me is, geez, you hope that they're gonna listen. There's no guarantees. And Ray, I see you want some feedback on that disposal there. I would like to see it open all day Saturday. You were looking for hours. I think that all day on the present drop-off site there, that's used continuously all day Saturday, so I'd like to see that.
What hours though, George?
Uh, Maybe 9 to 3 or 9 to 5, I'd say.
Personally, I use it on Saturdays more often than not, and I mean, there is a lot of traffic in there on
That's the
Saturdays,
only day I
certain
use it.
times of the year. And I'm there at 8 o'clock, and there's people there at 8.
In the summer, is it better though to have it later on Saturday? Because people are starting their yard work early, they're probably not going until later in the morning.
Oh,
Then
I mean,
extend it out a little further.
the hours I use, yes,
I don't get up Easter.
I don't get up there.
That's the difficult part, putting the hours together, is you have people with different schedules, you know, some can't do the work during the week, so they do some work, a lot of work on Saturday mornings into the afternoon. And some even, you know, into Saturday evening, and then they have to have Sunday in order to be able to dispose. So, you know, our request on hours or the timing, you know, is based on how many hours a week we're going to, you know, keep it open. It's not really so much what those hours are, but we have a certain amount of hours based on our budget. So, you know, we want to try and maximize whatever hours are open.
Ray, why are we expanding it to waste oil?
Well, that was a request that Joe and I talked about, the possibility of that they can actually sell that waste oil. You know, so there's some revenue coming in.
Yeah,
I've seen it done in other communities where they collect it, because I can sell it, and it's a way to help compensate for the guy's time that's gonna be out there and stuff.
yeah, but Joe, that just started this year that you could sell a waste oil?
No, I've been selling it for a long time.
2 years ago, you couldn't get it away.
I've gotten several checks over the years from our waste oil container here. I mean,
Okay.
If we try to do it out there, though, we need a containment area.
oh yeah, you're gonna have to put all that up, yeah. But I get over $1 a gallon for it. So it'll pay for itself in a short amount of time.
With George's comment on the hours, I like the all-day Saturday and possibly like at least a couple hours Sunday afternoon. So if you work Saturday, you know you might have a couple hours.
Well, and whatever we come up with, it can always be adjusted.
Right.
You know, by whoever we hire to do the job, you'll say, hey, there's nothing going on at such and such a time. And
Right.
I would think sometime during the middle of the week it should be open
Right.
in the evening.
One
too,
evening
you know.
during the week and then Saturday and Sunday, or sometime on Saturday and Sunday.
But we can always tweak it.
What else you got, George?
Nothing.
I've got nothing. Joe?
I do have one more item that I have to discuss regarding the 24-foot and the 16-foot Tanner gate at the hydro. I just received this quote this morning. Again, this conversation was started on Friday afternoon. I did not have an opportunity to get it into the packet. I have some pictures with me if you'd like to see them regarding some of the rusted spots on the skin of the tainter gates. Some of the spots that are rusted are, it's plate steel is what the skin is made out of. It's rusted about halfway through and pitted. So that has to be taken care of because the longevity of the gate without fixing it is not very long. And it's very expensive to water this gate, so now is the opportunity to go ahead and move forward with this. There's two ways that we came up with on repair. The first way would be to reskin the whole gate with new steel. That's extremely expensive. The quote that I received was $91,000 to do that effort. I am not familiar with this material, but one of my employees has used it in the past on some projects working for the Air Force, in the reserves, and the contractor has used it, TCR has used this in Escanaba on some underwater steel repair and refurbishment at the Escanaba Mill. And this stuff is called Simpson Strong FX 378 metal epoxy compound. Anybody familiar with it on the council at all? The way it was described to me is it's applied, it's troweled on in place. It adheres to the existing steel. It's impregnated with steel, and it gets so hard that you can actually drill it, tap it, put bolts in it like steel. And that is what they recommended coating this gate with in these corrosion areas. Now, not the whole gate is bad. On the big 24-foot gate, we're only talking about surface-wise, maybe a quarter of it needs to be coated. And on the small gate, it's a 4-foot by 4-foot area that needs to be coated. Okay, so the cost of putting this metal epoxy compound on it to repair it is $16,800. And it needs to be done when it's dewatered right now.
How much data or information is there on dealing with rushing water? Because having it sit out somewhere and getting a little rain on it's a lot different than having it sit at the dam and get pounded.
Well, everywhere that the gate is rusted, it's below the water level line. It's not where the waves hit it. It's down below that, closer to the bottom. So other than just some current flow moving by, you're not going to have stuff pounding on it because you're not passing water except for when it might be open halfway. Then you would have current on it. Like I said, they've used it on the steel underwater structures at the Escanaba Mill, and it's been very successful for them there. So it's a substantial savings over recoating the gate. I'd like to give it a try because it is such a savings in money, even if it only lasts 10, 15 years.
Joe, how much it costs to put that coffer dam in there?
About $150,000 just to install the coffer-dam. And so you don't want to take it down
Wow, that's
and
my
not do
point.
this.
I don't think it's worth putting some in there and hope it'll last 10 years.
Yeah.
I think we better look at a solution that's gonna last a lot longer than that.
That would be the reskinning the gate for 91,000.
Yeah, that would be reskinning the whole gate.
I'm actually agreeing with George on this
Okay,
one
that's fine.
because I'd rather have the more durable solution that you know is gonna last, not something that could flake off next year.
Okay.
Especially when you're looking at that kind of price just to put a coffer in.
What's the skinning material? What is it?
It's plate steel.
Plate steel?
Yeah, it's
not
plate steel.
stainless or something?
No, it's not stainless. That's just plate steel, and then it's sandblasted and tar coat epoxy lined for rust preventative.
Do they remove the old skin, Joe, or no?
Yes,
Okay.
they will be removing the old skin.
And that 91,000 includes the labor?
That is correct. That is the total cost to remove and install new skin.
To the best of your knowledge, has this ever been done before? On those gates?
Reskinning?
On these gates?
Yes. These gates have been reskinned
When, you know?
mid-'80s. I have read documentation, and I believe it was 85, 86.
30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since we need it now, somebody want to make a motion one way?
I'd make a motion to go do the job right.
Okay.
I'll support that.
Okay.
That's the 91,000 reskin.
Is that?
$91,590.
That's both gates or the one?
That's just the one gate. The other bad spot, we're gonna just cut out with a torch and weld it.
So you're reskinning one complete gate, patching.
Yes, patching the other one, because it's a small area.
Do you know when they were done 30 years ago, was it just the one or both of them done?
Both were done.
Wonder why one would be worse than the other? Is it used more? or-
In, I don't think it's really because of use. When you look at the pattern of the rusting on the large one, it might have been because the coal tar epoxy was a little thinner in that area than it was on other spots, but it shows a weld line where we welded the skin on. They're pretty vertical and one large horizontal across the whole bottom where it's pitted up.
I'll support George's.
Okay.
Joe, is that coffer dam go across both?
Yes, it does. We're totally dewatered both gates right now.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
No.
Mr. Ball?
Yeah.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Okay. What else you got, Joe?
That's enough for this evening.
Mary? Tricia? Okay.
Very briefly, I wanted to thank Mr. O'Brien for coming, and Plum Creek specifically. As the state continues to underfund our schools, it keeps pushing it to localities and generosity of businesses and people. I think I heard you say General Construction, Weber Construction, Baco, the Norway PTO. I think it's important to recognize those folks. People like Mr. Anderson that came earlier tonight too, which makes our community proud and makes our community what it is. And to comment on George that we don't win, along those lines, the school is back in session. Please be careful on the streets. Had a speeding ticket violation this morning hearing and we won, George. So
Really?
make sure to go slow out there, folks, to watch for those kids.
Ray?
To follow up with that too is that, be careful up by the school, by the auditorium when you're dropping the kids off. Don't make that illegal turn. I mean, I can see it from across from my house and I see every morning a number of cars do that. That's really dangerous. That's what if we put the police officers up there, that is an illegal turn. So please don't do that. That's very unsafe. I would encourage, in the project, to come and talk to us, to Joe and myself, because we definitely support those types of efforts in the community, especially at the school. We have a great partnership with the school, and so, that's something we would hope happen in the future. And I want to thank Emily, especially, and Jim Briner and other staff members for putting, with the booth out at the fair. I did get some really good comments when I was out there about looking at the information. So, but Emily did a lot of work out there, getting it out there, and for staff putting that together, get it out. So I want to thank them. That's all.
The motion to adjourn.
The motion we adjourn.
What?
Motion made by Chris, supported by George. Roll call.
Who made the motion?
Chris?
Who seconded?
George?
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein? Mr. Ball?
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.